Hello, I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer with RealTime Fantasy Sports. Welcome to the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. On today's show, it is time for our wavering video. We do it every week, giving you our top waiver wire picks for the coming week. We're in week 10 already, if you can believe that. I'm going to have Logan Glaser, contributing writer for RealTime Fantasy Sports, join me once again. Logan, appreciate you joining me on the show again. It's an interesting week, no doubt. It's kind of a tough one, I think, on this waiver wire. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yes, I have the same thoughts, Jeff. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of options out there currently on this week. Usually you rely on those injuries. Usually during the middle of the year, you have some surprises that come out there, and this week you don't really have any. So
That's true. It does seem, though, as the season progresses, it does get tougher to navigate it because, like you said, there are injuries that happen. But for the most part, if you have any talent, you're starting to, get on the field at this point of the year. So it's not a huge shock, but like you said, not really any injuries that impacted things too much this week.
for sure.
Let's jump right into it and go over some of our picks for the week. Let's start at the QB spot. Who do you like as a waiver wire pickup?
Yeah, first one is going to be a very deep dive in that Sam Ellinger. He's looked terrible in his first two games so far, 18% owned on the site. But what makes him intriguing is his dual threat ability to run the ball and also pass. He's facing Las Vegas, who ranks 31st against the QBs so far throughout this fantasy season. So I do think he bounces back a little bit this week. He's a good plug and play, especially in super flex leagues if you're needing a quarterback, just because Las Vegas is terrible defense against the pass, and I think he can excel against them this week. So I'll have him as my quarterback this week.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room, though. Jeff Saturday named head coach. I'm interested to see how that plays out. I think it could be a positive for the offensive line, which is underachieved, but it scares me
I mean,
as
yeah,
well.
it can only go up for them, I feel like. I
Yeah,
mean, the Colts have looked pretty rough the past couple of weeks, and especially everyone thought they were going to be division favorites coming into this year, especially with Matt Ryan coming in. Um, it's kind of been Tennessee's kind of pulling away. They got a 2-game lead over the Colts, so we'll see if they stay in there.
it's definitely been ugly for him. I always pick a game every year. Me and my son and my brother go and pick a team to watch. We picked the Colts this year. It's late in the season as well, so
Who are they
it
facing?
could be ugly. They're playing. It's a Monday night game though against the Chargers, so that's the
Okay.
positive. We get to see the
Yeah.
Chargers. But I thought on paper, I was like, oh, this is gonna be a good game. Be a good game. Not so much anymore. But oh well. Hopefully the Chargers are rolling and they play well. I digress. So let's move on to my pick for QB, and it's Zach Wilson with the New York Jets. He didn't do much last week from a fantasy perspective, just 13.1 fantasy points, but he played well in a big win against the Bills. I think it kind of surprised everyone. He was 18 of 25 for 154 yards and a touchdown, but most importantly to me, did not get picked off in the game, so he made good decisions. I think he's hitting his stride in this offense a little bit. He has 2 games with 20-plus fantasy points, so he showed some potential for that big game. So I think he could be worth some streaming plays the rest of the season. He's available in 76% of leagues as well, so that's my pick for QB. Let's move on to running back now, Logan. Who's your pick this week at running back?
Yeah, my pick this week is Jalen Warren. If there's one person to pick up, I personally think on the waiver wire this week, and that would be Warren out of all positions. So Tomlin's kind of stated that he wants to get Warren more involved because Najee Harris has not looked very good. There's several clips going around where he could have got a first down and kind of just stopped short of that instead of excelling through. So Najee's looked very shaky. Tomlin's kind of liking Warren so far, and Warren put up 50 rushing yards last week, or in week 8 when he played. They had a bye last week. He also had 3 receptions for 25 yards, and that should only be going up for him so far. It might turn into more of a split role because they're kind of falling out of that playoff contention as well. So they might be kind of resting Harris a little bit more, kind of get Warren the ball more.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is the top pick of the week. If I'm going out and getting somebody and you need a running back, I'd make him my top priority. I think he has the highest ceiling out of our selections for this week. So that's a great call on Warren. And you see these comparisons. I've seen it a couple times now, comparing Najee Harris to Trent Richardson. That's not a good thing.
Yes,
You
we're
don't want
seeing
to
a
do that.
lot of that
Yeah,
going around on, but
yeah, not good, not good. All right, my pick for running back is Kenneth Gainwell of the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, a little bit of a deep dive here, but he scored his 3rd touchdown of the season last week. He's not getting a lot of weekly work, but he's getting it a little more lately. He has at least 5 touches 2 of the last 3 games. He had 3 receptions last week, which I think is really encouraging. That helps his fantasy floor. Again, it's a tough week, not a lot out there, but Gainwell's getting a little more work. That Eagles offense is really good as well. He's available in 63% of leagues. So if you're looking for maybe a deep flex play, I'd consider adding him to my roster. Let's move on to receiver. Anything better out there at the receiver spot, Logan?
It's a little shaky still, but my wide receiver I'm going to go with is Wan'Dale Robinson. He's most talented wide receiver on the Giants because they've had a couple of injuries. You also got Slade on the roster who's seeing a decent amount of targets, but the most talented one I think is Wan'Dale Robinson. He had 8 targets versus Jacksonville. He's coming up against Houston this week. I really like he's got a good ceiling they can have with the Giants because he's going to be their number 1 wide receiver, I personally think. Rookie wide receivers tend to do better in the second half of the season. We're about to enter that second half of the season. They're coming off a bye last week, so I expect him to get more involved with that passing offense as the number 1 option for the Giants.
Yeah, good call on Robinson. I do think he's intriguing to see what he does the rest of the season. I have 2 picks for receiver. My first one's made the list the last couple of weeks for us, but I'm going to keep pushing him because he's still out there, and that's Terrace Marshall with Carolina. He's starting. He's making plays in that offense. He scored his first touchdown of the season last week. He has 12-plus fantasy points, 2 straight games. He's been targeted 15 times the last 2 games. I know that passing situation's a mess. Baker Mayfield, P.J. Walker, not very good, but Marshall's getting the looks. His team's playing from behind a lot. He's available in 77% of leagues, so I like him as a pickup if you're looking for maybe a number 3 receiver to use this week. And I have one more receiver, actually, and it's Philip Dorsett of the Houston Texans. Brandon Cooks could be back this week. We know he's upset with his situation of not being traded, but Dorsett's going to start opposite of him. He's been doing pretty well as also. Nico Collins remains banged up. And Dorsett had 3 catches for 69 yards last week on 5 targets. He's been targeted 10 times his last 2 games. Again, not a sure thing in this offense, but it's another team that plays from behind a lot, has to throw, and Dorsett's one of the top options for them right now. And he's actually available in 99% of leagues, so he's owned in just 1% of leagues on our site. So the tight end spot, in my opinion, has some more options this week, some guys that I think are viable to use not only this week, but maybe going forward. So I think there's some good options this week. Who do you have for your tight end?
Yeah, for tight end, I've got Robert Tonyan. So Dubes is hurt. You got Christian Watson also hurt, and Packers didn't pick up any wide receivers. So this is leaving Tonyan as probably the number 2 option in that offense for Green Bay. So they've got Lazard and Tonyan, and that's about it to throw it to. So as we saw, Green Bay very much struggled last week against Detroit Lions. Rodgers looked awful. He had several interceptions. But if they're going to win games, they're going to have to move the ball through the air. And I expect Tonyan to get a lot more targets with Dubes and Watson a little bit banged up.
And you didn't mention Aaron Jones, too. That's another option.
Aaron Jones is, as well.
He catches a lot of passes out of the backfield, so that could
for sure.
Even more targets for Tonyan this week. Okay, my pick, actually, he is actually my top target outside of Jaylen Warren this week, and it's Cade Otton. He's actually really gaining value in this Bucs offense. We know Tom Brady loves to throw to the tight end. He scored his first touchdown last week, first NFL touchdown. He has double-digit fantasy points, 3 of 5 games. He's getting a lot of weekly work, and a Bucs offense that's completely pass first at this point. They can't run the balls at all. I think he's a low-end number 1 tight end at this point, even a number 2, a good number 2 backup as well. So he's available in 84% of leagues, actually about 80% now after last night's waivers ran. So he's available in 80% of leagues. But Otton, I think he's a good pickup if you're looking for a tight end. I think he could really be useful the rest of the way. Okay, we like to give streaming defenses, and I think there's actually a couple this week that work well. Who's your streaming defense for Week 10, Logan?
Yeah, defense I'm going to be streaming is Atlanta Falcons. They go up against Carolina again. They just played each other 2 weeks ago. Atlanta defense scored 9 fantasy points versus them, which you'll gladly take from a defense. 9 points is great on RT Sports standard scoring. And Carolina, they might be switching QBs on and off throughout the game, so they're going to be starting with P.J. Walker, but they're probably going to have a short leash on him. He got benched last game for Baker Mayfield, so if he gets in trouble, he might be pulled early. So Baker will be in there.
I like the Titans' streaming defense this week. They really held that Chiefs offense.
They did.
Really impressive game They have 5 straight games with at least 3 sacks. They're owned in just 35% of leagues on our site. Kind of surprising to me. And they play Denver this week. Their offense isn't nearly as good as the Chiefs. Russell Wilson has been a disaster. The running game isn't doing much as well. So I really like the Titans this week, and I think they could be a good play the rest of the year as well. So if you're looking for a defense, I'd go grab them this week.
Yeah,
All right, Logan. That's our wavering video for this week. Appreciate you joining me once again.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeff.
Yeah, a lot of fun. As always, we'll have to do it again next week. Hopefully there's some better options out there.
For sure. It's going to be a rough week, but hopefully your teams are looking good, making that final push for those playoffs.
Exactly. All right, Logan, thanks again. Appreciate it. This has been Jeff Paur from RealTime Fantasy Sports.
And this has been Logan Glaser from RealTime Fantasy Sports.
Good luck in Week 10, everybody.